Accountable. That was White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre denying that the Biden border policies are to blame for 51 deaths. More than 51 migrants were found dead in an 18-wheeler in a suspected smuggling operation earlier this week. Joining us right now is Pennsylvania Congressman, House Foreign Affairs Committee member, and House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee member Scott Perry. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much. Your reaction to what was found in that tractor trailer, 100 people jammed in a truck in sweltering heat, 51 of them dead.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good morning, Maria. You've heard of the administration that might have been called the buck stops here administration. This is the nothing to see here administration, thinking that they can just tell us lie after lie after lie, and we're going to believe it. The border is not closed. It is a far left globalist open border with record crossings every single month. And by the way, this alleged humanitarian policy, record numbers of deaths of migrants this year. It's just, unfortunately, it's not laughable because these are 51 souls that are now gone, and the people that perpetrated this they're in the wind as well. We're enriching the cartels, and that's the policy of this administration, to have American taxpayers use their hard-earned dollars to enrich the cartels and support these tragedies on the border, and then the tragedies that come to America in the form of record numbers of fentanyl poisonings and gang murders and gang violence and the violence that you talked about in the last segment across our land. Yeah. These are all the policies of the Biden administration. Everything is up except consumer confidence and wages. Everything else is up, is generally up. Prices across the board, and tragedies across the board, and of course a record cost of the Independence Day celebration that Americans would like to impart in and likely can't afford this year.
Well, it's very disturbing that you've got these wide open borders, not just for the fact that we're seeing all of this human smuggling. These drug cartels are running America. I mean, they're running the entrance to America. It's absolutely incredible. They're getting paid $4,000 a head if you're from the Northern Triangle, $50,000 if you're coming from China. They're making $200 million a week, we're told. That doesn't even include the drugs. 50 people were apprehended who were actually on the terrorist watch list. We've got hundreds of thousands of gotaways. We don't know their intentions. We've seen them on surveillance cameras. We know they're in this country. What's the point here? Is this Biden's idea, or is the progressive left telling him to keep the borders wide open and he's just doing as told?
I do believe that he has come around to the progressive left's viewpoint, whether he has coherently or incoherently. This is the policy of the radical left wing, and there are many old world Democrats that lived in the Democrat Party of JFK. That party no longer exists. It is run by AOC and the radical left. Wow. And, oh, by the way, JFK would probably be in the Freedom Caucus if he were around today. He would not be invited into the Democrat Party. And so the president is going along with this. And, of course, his mouthpieces are acting like we can't see what we see. Those 50 deaths aren't really occurring. And the record number of deaths on the border aren't occurring. The record number of fentanyl poisonings in our country isn't occurring. The record crime isn't occurring. Don't believe what you see here. Nothing to see here. Right. Policies and leadership and people matter.
Well, Kamala Harris did an interview on CNN the other day, and she's talking about how they're trying to lower health care costs, as if inflation is not in our faces every day. Everything is more expensive. Look at a dozen eggs up 37% year over year. We're looking ahead to the final revision of the first quarter GDP this morning. It's out in about an hour right now. We're expecting a contraction of 1.5%. Then we will start looking at the second quarter, Congressman. We've been talking about recession for months. What do you think is happening here? Are we in a recession, and what can Congress do in response to an economic downturn?
Yeah, of course. Look, they flooded the market with trillions and trillions of dollars, not enough goods fast enough with a broken supply chain over COVID. What Congress can do is stop the bleeding, stop the errant spending, the aberrant never-ending spending on things that we can't pay for. That's what Congress can do, and what the administration can do is quit lying to us when they say they're doing everything they can about energy prices. It's a flat-out lie, and we all know it. It has nothing to do with Vladimir Putin. It has everything to do with Biden's policies. And on the spending, they can be doing the same thing. They're still working towards Build Back Better. Just crazy spending on things we can't afford, aren't tested, aren't true, and don't work. This is actually a fairly simple formula, but they refuse to follow it at all.
Yeah,
and we're all going to suffer for it.
This is the highest 4th of July, Adam Johnson, in 41 years. The most expensive 4th of July holiday in 40 years.
Well, and the problem is, as we've been talking, as you pointed out, Maria, it's everything. It's not just gasoline. Right. It's eggs. It's milk. Yeah. It's the cost of doing business. Congressman, if I may ask you a question, sure. You alluded to potentially a playbook, a fiscal playbook in case there's recession. Specifically, what do we do?
Well, I think the Congress has to lead. We have the power of the purse. We control the spending. We got to act like there's a problem in America, and right now we're not. Under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and of course, Joe Biden. They're just saying, let's keep spending. Let's keep pushing. Look, we're spending money we don't have in Ukraine. We don't have the money to spend on our country. We don't have the money to spend on the border to pay for all these migrants that are walking across the border, receiving cell phones, receiving benefits. Yeah. We can't afford to buy things at our store if we can find them. If you trying to buy baby formula to feed your child, not only can't you find it, but you can't afford it.
Yeah,
so
you're out of
leadership
luck,
starts at the top. At the top, it starts with Joe Biden, and it starts with Congress looking at what's happening, realizing the American people are suffering. The poor people in America are the poorest ever, and they can afford this the least. We need to get our fiscal house in order, and it starts right in Congress with our spending.
Congressman, we'll be watching. Thanks very much for being here this morning. Scott Perry joining us.
Thank you,
sir. Quick